Amy with AJ's Vintage Designs and Fashion Toppings here, doing a fun little project. Now I have these boots. I got them very inexpensive at Walmart. I believe I paid like right at 20 bucks for them. $19.99 I think they were. But look at these boots. Aren't they cute? Perfect for painting on. I've already done one boot, and this is what I've done. I have a paintbrush that is actually painting a swish of paint around the side with AJ, which is my initials, and some paint dripping down. So I kind of want to make these cool and fun. So I'm going to do the other one. I'm going to show you just how quick and easy it is. Now, if your boot is dirty, you can just take a damp cloth to clean it off, or you can take a alcohol pad. If you have grease on it, you can use an alcohol pad and get it nice and clean. And then you can just start painting away. What I like to do is I like to get a Taylor's chalk. You can change out the chalk just like that. See? Comes right out. You can pick your colors. I just broke the tip off. You can pick your colors. It comes in several colors. I got this at Joann Fabrics, but you can get it pretty much at any of the fabric stores, craft stores. They're Taylor chalk pens. And I like to sketch out my drawing before then. The nice thing is I'm able to wipe it off. If there's anything I don't like, I can wipe it off. I can also paint over it. Okay, so I'm just gonna sketch out my little design. On the tip of this foot, I am gonna want a paint palette. So I'm just gonna draw a little paint palette on here, and you're gonna see how nicely this sketches. Like I said, it comes in many colors, so you can get hot pink if you're working on a brown boot. See that, just like that. Okay, there's a circle right up here, so I'll put a circle here. That's the opening. So like that. And then I want a paintbrush along here someplace. So I'm gonna have splattered paint on my little pad here. And I think up the foot, I'm gonna draw a large paintbrush. So there, I got my little artist brush up there. See how I got that? So I'm sketching out all my ideas, and then I can do paint splatters on this. I can add flowers if I want to, but you can draw out your design with the chalk pencil. So I'm gonna keep drawing on this and coming up with a creative idea. Now, like I said, if you decide you don't like an idea, let's say I wanna change up this toe, I can just take my finger and wipe it off. If I use a wet pad, it'll take it off completely. So if I use a little bit of water, I can take it off completely, okay? I'm just gonna wipe that off. I'm gonna actually draw that back on there because I liked it. So that is it. I'm gonna sketch on my little drawing, and then we're gonna start to paint. Okay, so I have my little design mapped out. I've got two little paint brushes that are gonna do little paint swirls. And then I've got my little paint palette up the front, which I'm gonna be painting little splotches of color on. And then I have some dripping paint coming down the side. So not too busy, but it's fun, and it's going to look great with this boot. Okay, so I'm gonna turn the camera down so you can watch me paint. Okay, the first thing is you just need to put a base coat of color down, and then we can add to it, but we wanna get the base colors down first. So what I'm gonna start doing is putting the color on that toe. I'm using my turquoise iris craft brushes. And for this paint palette, I'm gonna start off with Dixie Belle's Mud Puddle. Okay. And like I said, this is just to get the paint on the first coat. I'll worry about solid coverage later. You can use a little bit of water. I do have a little cup of water here. I can dip my brush in if I want my brush to be a little bit more wet. And I'm just getting a base coat on, just so I know where all the colors are going. And then I'm gonna let it dry. And then the second coat is for filling it all in. And then I can come back and add details. So I'm just painting right like a coloring book. I'm just painting inside my chalk lines. If I go over my chalk lines, it's okay. And if I don't make it all the way out to my chalk lines, I just wipe them off with water. Okay, so I'm kind of being mindful of brush strokes. I don't want it to be messy looking. So I'm gonna go nice and clean. I don't want any puddles of paint. Get my nice line along there. See how easy this is? And when I'm sealing it, I know you're probably wondering already, how am I gonna seal this? You can, if you're working on canvas shoes, you can seal them with, a little more water. You can seal them with Scotch Guard. You can use a clear coat on them. I personally use Easy Peasy spray wax, and I'll show you that towards the end when I'm using canvas. And I'll show you some examples of some of the shoes I have painted and how they've held up over time. I have one pair of tennis shoes that I painted almost a year ago, and I still wear them and they look great. I love to paint shoes. So you can seal them, like I said, with a clear coat, especially on like the leather. You can use a clear coat, a polyacrylic clear coat on them. You can spray them with Scotch Guard. You can spray them with liquid wax. They all do a great job. Scotch Guard and Dixie Belle's Gator Hide. Dixie Belle's Gator Hide I have done on cowboy boots, and I'm going to show you at the end of this video. I'm going to show you some examples of different painted shoes I've done and how I sealed them and how they've held up. Because I started painting some shoes about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and I've just kind of been addicted to it. I just keep dipping into a little bit of water so that my paint is nice and thin. I'm just doing a thin first coat, like I said. Just want to get that paint on, just so I can get my colors all mapped out. And then once you have your first coat of paint on, this first coat dries. Now this is Dixie Belle paint. I'm using, it's a chalk-based paint, chalk mineral paint. And once it dries, this is gonna give something for my second coat to grab onto. So I'm not worried about having great, all full coverage on my first coat. I just wanna make sure it's nice and smooth. I don't want any drips, I don't want any clumps. So I'm just making sure it's smooth. Now this is gonna give me a good base for my second coat when it dries. So let's go ahead and dip my little brush in water. Okay, and then the next one, let's do my little paint brushes first. The paint brushes, I'm doing a base coat of yellow, which is Dixie Belle's Daisy. And the paint brushes aren't necessarily going to be yellow, but the base coat is gonna be yellow, and I'll be adding some details to it on my second coat. But right now I'm just getting that base coat on. And here we go. See how easy this is? You don't have to be afraid to paint on shoes. Pick an old pair of shoes as your first project, just to play and get comfortable with it. And then like me, I buy these shoes at like Target, on their clearance rack. These particular boots are from Walmart. And so you spend very little on them, but you get to customize them and make them very unique to your own. See, look at how that paint goes on. That is just one coat. Like I said, if I don't get out to the chalk lines, it's okay. I can take a wet rag to them and remove the chalk lines anytime. But right now it's giving me a line for me to follow. Okay. And I'm not worried about being totally neat on my first coat. I'm just making sure it's on smooth. And my next coat is where I'm gonna worry about perfecting the coverage, making it nice and smooth, solid color coverage, and doing some blending maybe. And then I'll add details on after my second coat. You know, like the wood grains of the paint brushes, I'll add all that after I've got a solid second coat on there. So there's my paint brushes. Okay, so now my actual tips of my paint brushes, I want to add a little bit of brown in there. So let me put a little bit of Dixie Belle chocolate. I'm going to use the same yellow brush because I'm not going to be using that again for a little bit. So I'm going to add some chocolate, dip a little bit in water. I keep water next to me just to keep that paint nice and thin. Okay, let's do this lower one first. Okay, just get that brush. And I'll show you the other foot. I will be adding, with a very thin brush, I'll be adding in all the bristles. This is just the undercoating. This is just the main coat that I'm gonna be building on. Okay, just want to get that on there. So I've got the one brush. I'm doing this all upside down. Okay, let's get the second bristles of the brush here. See, it's not a big deal that I'm getting that chalk under my paint. It's not a big deal. It's helping me figure out where I need to be painting at. It's like a coloring book. So there is the other brush. So like I said, I'm just getting base coats on so that I can figure out where everything's gonna go. Now I'm gonna dip this in water. Need a little bit thinner brush. And I'm going to double dip. I'm gonna do purple and maybe yellow. So putting one part of my brush in purple and one part of the brush in yellow, just to do this little line coming off the paintbrush. And I'm kind of spinning my brush as I go. And I'll thicken it out. I just don't want it to be one solid color. I kind of want it to be kind of smooth and blended with multiple colors in it. I just want streaks. Okay, so now I can add like some more streaks of purple in there. I could actually come back and put some pink in there just to have it be, I don't want it to be one solid color. So there's my purple right there. And then maybe, okay, I decided to use cobalt blue instead. So we're gonna do cobalt blue and maybe some of that yellow and cobalt blue. And we're gonna do that swirl that's up on top. Once again, I'm doing it upside down. And I'm gonna start off with the yellow and just kind of spin my brush. And I'll blend it out. I'm just getting the colors on here. Okay, so there we go. So my 2 paint brushes, doing little paint swirls. Over here, I think I like that cobalt blue. So I'm gonna be doing the cobalt blue in my paint drips. So I'm just gonna get this on. I'll switch to a bigger brush to fill it in, but I'm just getting around these little curves. I guess I can paint it in with this little brush. Okay, so now I got the base coats on. I'm gonna let this dry before I add any of the details. I'll be adding more to make this look like more like wood. I'll be putting my splattered paints on. I have my paint brushes, which I need to add some details to with the little paint swishes. And then I have my running paint on this side. When I talk about bristles, this is what I'm talking about. See the toe here? I painted on all those little bristles. That's what I need to do on my little paint brushes. So now that I got the base coat on, I'm gonna let this dry. I'm gonna probably let it dry about an hour, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna start adding some details. Okay, so I have 2 coats on. So I got a more solid coverage on the toe. So I got 2 coats on it. I started working on the brushes here, but everything is much more opaque now. That's with 2 coats of color. So I basically repeated the same steps as I showed earlier. And then now we can start adding in some of the details, like the bristles. Let me show you up here on this one. And with that, I usually take just a very fine tip paintbrush. And I'm going to dip in different colors of, it doesn't matter, different colors of browns, blacks, a little bit of white, just to put streaks in here so it looks like brush strokes. So I'm going to dip my paintbrush in water so it's wet. I'm gonna dip in a little bit of brown. This is a dark, dark brown called coffee bean. And as you can see here, I'm doing this upside down. I'm just gonna draw some streaks in here. And we're gonna be doing this in layers. We're gonna be adding more and more streaks on as we go. And just alternating some colors to make these look like bristles. There's no wrong or right way to do this. You just, do whatever just comes natural. See how I'm just brushing some streaks in there. Just like that. Then maybe I'll go to a little bit of white. Dip in some water. Okay, maybe I'll go into a little bit of white and a little bit of brown together. So I'm just alternating and adding different colors into the bristles, just to kind of add layers. So there's some white, and then I'll go back with some dark brown. Just alternating back and forth between colors. Maybe now I'll add some of the chocolate, which is the dark brown or a lighter brown. And a little bit of that on there. So you can still see all the different colors in the layers. So it kind of starts looking like paintbrush bristles. And this is just supposed to be a fun, it's not, I'm not doing canvas work, I'm just having fun. So I'm adding layers into that. Maybe I want to come back and add a little bit more white on top of that. more white. So I'm gonna play with it, and I will just keep dry. It's almost like just putting little streaks, almost like dry brushing. So putting some white in there, and I'm just alternating back and forth. I'm just gonna keep going back and forth from color to color until I get the look that I'm going for. I'm doing that coffee bean, that really dark. Here we go. And that's just how I make it look like bristles. Nothing real artistic, nothing fancy, but it just kind of gives it some dimension. Okay, and then for the toe, I'm not gonna be doing anything extra to this. I just like it plain, just the way it is. I did add a little drop of paint down here to make it look like it was dripping. But for the toe, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch brushes, gonna use a little bit wider brush. And for this, what I can do is, I'm just using a small little craft brush, and I can dip into, I'm gonna dip into a really dark brown. You can see right down there, that's coffee bean and a little bit of chocolate. I'm just gonna dip my brush into both. So putting them side by side, here and here. I'm just gonna dip into both. Okay? And I'm just going to kind of brush those colors on here. See how I was doing just multiple colors? I'm gonna add a little bit of water so I can get that to move just a little bit. Basically, I just don't want it to look like it's one solid color. I'm gonna build upon this. I'm just gonna add a little bit of water to this to get it to move just a little bit, soften those brush strokes up. And by having two different colors paint on my brush at once, it makes it so, I don't know if you can see it, it just adds, here's one flat color, and by just adding two colors on my brush, I'm just adding just a little bit of dimension to it so it doesn't look like one solid color. Now remember, I'm gonna be putting big paint splotches on this to make it look like that it's a paint palette. So I'm gonna be putting paint on it. So this is just like the background. Dip in a little bit of water. Once again, just gonna brush those two colors up. Just so it's just not one solid color. I want those little streaks in there. I'm painting from upside down so I can't see the toe. Okay, doing it again, dipping in the dark brown, a little bit of the light brown, and just making those streaks. If I need a little water, I just dip my brush in some water. That allows that paint to move. I'll take a little wet rag in that circle to make sure that I didn't fill in that circle. So that's all I want, is just those streaks. I just want this to look like a used, beat up paint palette. Okay, I'm just gonna clean this up just a little bit. Okay, as soon as this dries, I'm gonna just put some splashes of paint on it. Clean that up just right there with my finger. Okay, so see how it's just not such a solid color anymore? It's got some streaks in it. Nothing fancy, like I said, but I'm gonna be putting splatters of paint on here because it's a paint palette. Okay, that's gonna dry in just a second. Now, as far as with the paint brushes, I just don't want it one solid color yellow. So I just took my yellow again and mixed it with just a little bit of brown, maybe just a little bit of yellow, just to kind of dirty up that yellow just a little bit. And that's all I did with the paintbrush, is just dirty that up a little bit. So it's just not one solid color of yellow. Nothing fancy on the paintbrushes. I just don't want it to look like one solid color yellow. So I dip my brush in the brown, the white, and the yellow. I'm letting them blend actually on the piece. And just wipe it back if I get outside that line right there. There. So I'm not doing anything fancy with them. I just didn't want them to be one solid color of yellow. So I just mixed a few colors on my brush and that's it. So that's all there is to do on the brushes. And we'll do the palette in just a second. And then my drips are done. Okay, we'll come back and we're gonna do that paint palette and we'll be done. Okay, I let that dry for probably 10 minutes. And now I'm just gonna put little splashes of paint on here. I'm not gonna be neat about it because when we do a palette, we're not really conscious about how we put our paint on the paint palette. So I'm just putting little splashes, just letting my brush just kind of twist around. Putting blue on there. We switch to another brush and let's put a little red on there. Put some red down here. Just pushing my brush in. I don't want it to look nice and neat. Just kind of pushing my brush in there. Okay, there's some red. And then of course we have to have some yellow. Because I got yellow on the other side. Nice and messy. Let's put some purple on here. Some purple right over here. Squishing my brush. Need a little water. Get that purple moving. Okay, so I got my little paint palette down here. No rhyme or reason, just pick some colors that I liked. Just kind of splatter them around. You can actually mix the colors up. I got a little purple in there. And there we go, got some blue in with that yellow. Just using the same brush and kind of just splashing these colors around. So there's my little paint palette at the front. Here we go. Now, I want to show you what I do to seal my boots. Okay, so here's this. We're going to let this dry, but I have my other boot here where I can show you how to seal it. Okay, so now when it comes time to sealing your shoes, you have several different options. Now, I painted my tennis shoes last year, it was last July, and look at the condition. They're a little dirty, but look at how well the paint holds. And with these, I did spray them with Scotch Guard to keep them more waterproof, but I wanted to soften them up so they weren't so hard and crunchy. So I did seal them with Dixie Belle's Easy Peasy Spray Wax. You shake it up really well, and this dries in 30 minutes, cures in 6 hours, and you can spray it on as often as you need to update it. See, I just sprayed it on, and then you wipe off the excess, and it will reseal your shoes again and keep them nice and soft. That is the Easy Peasy Spray Wax. This is what I use whenever I'm painting fabric. If I'm painting fabric, I seal it with the Easy Peasy Spray Wax. It's a water-based spray wax. Great for sealing and keeping fabric soft so they don't feel that or hear that. It doesn't make it feel like it's been painted because you're using this. It softens the fabric and it seals it, and you can update it as often as you need to. So that's one option, is using the Easy Peasy Spray Wax. Next, these are some leather, I painted these. These were black boots, and I used a patina process and made them all aged. And these I did seal with Dixie Belle's Gator Hide. Because I wanted them to be more waterproof. These were gonna get used and abused. And I use them for staging, and sometimes I keep them outside on the front porch. Just as a staging prop next to some rustic buckets. But that I did seal with Gator Hide. Now with the Gator Hide, it's not as soft as a finish, but it does have a water repellent property to it. But it's not as soft as using the spray wax, okay? Next, you can use, if I would let this paint dry for a good 7 days. If you let this paint dry, you can also seal it with hemp oil. Dixie Belle has How Do You Do hemp oil. You can seal it with hemp oil. Or you can also, these are both oil-based products. This is water-based paint. So I do suggest letting that paint be on there at least 7 days before you interchange the two. But the Big Mama's Butter, this is what I'm gonna seal these with right now. This is just an oil-based like salve. You can use it for polishing your boots. You can use it for sealing paint. So I'm gonna put just a little bit on my rag. and I'm going to apply it to the boots, okay? And you can see where I've applied it. I'm gonna apply it all over. See how nice that is gonna make it look? That's the finishing step. But like I said, I let this paint dry for at least a week. Just so I know it's on there, it's not gonna move, it's not gonna reactivate, but I let it sit on there for about a week, and now look at, I'm able to seal it. And look at how much more vibrant it is. Look at that. Look at how much more vibrant it is. And you're not gonna get that oily feeling, because I'm going to wipe it back, but look at, I'm rubbing my finger across there. You do not see any oily fingerprints either. This kind of works like almost like a polish. So I do most of my boots, my leather boots, I use the salve on them just to recondition them. And it doesn't give your boots that oily feel, but at the same time, what I'm doing is I'm sealing my paint. Look, I'm going over my paint with that. Like I said, this paint has been on here for about 7 days. So it's had time to dry. As soon as the other boots have dried for 7 days, I'm gonna do the same process. But look at the difference. See, look at how nice that is. And you can see in the shine here, look at, there's no fingerprints. It's not oily. But that's the new shine that I have on my boots. So aren't those gonna be adorable? I cannot wait to wear them. Okay, so and here's my wet ones. These are still wet. And I will seal these the same way. As soon as it's been, like I said, 7 days, I'm gonna go and seal them the same way. I'm gonna take some pictures, and I cannot wait to wear these. Look at these two together. That could be fun. The paint drips on the inside, AJ and some paintbrushes on the outside. There you go. So if you have not painted shoes before, get an old pair of shoes out of your closet, give it a try. It's a lot of fun. I use these are all Dixie Belle chalk mineral based paints. But you can do it, I'm sure, with acrylics, but personally I only use Dixie Belle paints. But I'm sure you can do this with acrylics and with fabric paints, but why not? If you got an old pair of shoes that you're not wearing and you want to get creative with, make them your canvas. Then you can have an original pair of shoes that only you have. These are unique to me. I'm so excited to wear these. I'm gonna take some pictures as soon as I get that other shoe sealed. But I love doing these kind of projects. Now, it's not limited to just shoes. I painted jeans, and you can message me if you want a link to the video that I did on Facebook. I painted jeans, I painted shorts, I've painted shoes, I've painted hats. So it can all be painted, and several options for sealing. So hopefully you give this project a try. And don't forget to like and subscribe down below so you know every time that I'm going to be putting up a new video. I do a little bit of painting, painting furniture, painting shoes, upcycling, thrifted items, transformations, all that sorts of stuff, and yeah, even some sewing. So make sure you're subscribed down below and click on that little bell so you're notified when I put up a new video. And check out the rest of my video libraries on here. I have almost 400 videos that you can binge watch. They go back several years and lots of sewing and lots of projects. So this is Amy once again with AJ's Vintage Designs and Fashion Toppings. Thanks for joining me. Love and hugs, and until next time, I hope you have a great day.